Hey friends, thanks for tuning in. Today I'm doing an extreme budget challenge at Aldi. I'll spend $6 for 3 days worth of food. That's breakfast, lunch, and dinner for $6. And I'm fine if it goes over with a little bit of change, but it has to be under $7. Here are the rules for this challenge. I can use pantry staples like dry spices, flour, oil, and vinegar to help put my meals together. I'm also allowing myself one hot sauce as a condiment for my meals. I was doing a series on 9 meals for $5, but I did decide with inflation that I really needed to add in an extra $1. And in my zeal to be doing another one of these challenges, I didn't realize how early it was on a Sunday morning, and Aldi is still closed. I was happy to see the Dollar Tree was open, so I was able to kill a half hour in there, and I found some stuff that I'll be sharing with you in next week's video. So make sure that you have the notifications turned on so that you don't miss when I release that video. And I was relieved to see that I still have my special Aldi quarter, because it is a pain when this thing is missing. I already looked at the prices online, but I did take a glance at this just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Bread is inexpensive, but I do have flour in my pantry staples, so I can make some kind of bread if I want to. And here's where they have the very best deals, and these were also on ad. They had these strawberries, which look absolutely delicious. They're super red and fresh looking. There are a lot of things that I can do with these strawberries. I could use them in a salad. I could use them in a dessert. Lots of ways to use those. They had these English cucumbers that were huge, and they were 95 cents each. These would go a long way in a salad for some crunch factor. I could also slice these up and pickle them. If I did make some bread, these would go towards having a nice sandwich. I typically like to get at least one banana for these extreme budget meals because there's so many things you can do with them. However, I don't think I'm going to be able to afford eggs for this one, so I think I'm going to pass on that. And I'll see where my budget is towards the end. If I have some left over, maybe I'll grab one. I am looking for some spinach. I have in my mind that a spinach and strawberry salad would be so good. I used to make one, and I actually haven't made this for so long. It's always nice to have some kind of green, and besides using this for salads, I could also julienne this and add this to some soups. I do love spinach in soups. It's something I've been doing a lot lately. Eggs were just too expensive. They were $2.69 for these white cage-free eggs, and I did find some brown eggs that were actually cheaper at $2.49 a dozen, but regardless, that's still too much for this tiny budget that we're working with, so I'm going to have to get my protein somewhere else. I spotted this zucchini and it was a fairly good deal. However, when I did the calculations, it was just way too much for the budget. And if you're wondering about my multicolored nails, it wasn't planned that way. I actually was just halfway through doing my nails from the night before, and I just got so tired that I went to sleep. But I realized when I was filming this that they actually match my tennis shoes, which is actually kind of funny. Chayote squash is 99 cents each, and I love those in soups. And actually those are good in salads too, but I think I'm going to look around a bit. I was thinking that a potato would be great in the menu that is kind of formulating in my head, and I feel like a potato is very satiating and it goes a long way, but these are 87 cents a pound, so I would be almost at the 87 cents for this. I'm going to put this in my cart and think about this. And I spotted these little pastas, and they were only 29 cents. And then I started thinking about that fried macaroni that I made in one of those other extreme budget videos, and it was so good. I would love to make that again. Maybe I could add in some kind of bean to it and up the protein and make a healthier version, but something that's still tasty. I was actually making that after I had boiled some of this pasta and I didn't really like the texture, so I just fried it along with some garlic salt, and it was so good. And I had topped it with some of the chili crisp. I could also use this fideo. Basically, I could just use half of that in a soup. I could also use the other half maybe just with some fried pasta. And these do have some protein in them. I wonder how these would be in like a cold pasta salad. So I don't know, I think I might be able to squeeze one of these into the budget. And I didn't even realize it, but the beans were right next to these. So I do need to get something in this area. I was kind of hoping for chickpeas, but it does look like green lentils might be what I end up going with. I don't really see anything else that fits into our budget. I can do a lot with these green lentils. I love lentils in soup. I could also use them to make a cold salad. Or I was also thinking about maybe trying to make some samosas and use those as a protein for the center of the samosa. I do need some other kind of vegetable to go with it, but I am going to get a lot of servings out of this. So I'm wondering what else I could make. I've always wanted to make a lentil hummus. Maybe I could try doing that. I could also use the spinach in soups and salads, and then that fideo also would go in soups, or maybe even I could try to make a pasta salad with that. I'm not really sure yet what I'm going to do with that, but that also does have a little bit of protein. So I'm going to head over and see if they have anything in the vegetable department that fits into my budget that might go well with the menu that I'm planning. They had the canned potatoes, but I do believe I'll get more if I buy the fresh potato. And besides, when I can, I would prefer to buy fresh ingredients to canned. But then I did spot these mixed vegetables, and I'm thinking that these might be perfect for the purposes of my menu. These would be great along with those lentils inside the samosas. And also I could use some of these in some soup. So I think that this will work out perfectly. So I'm going to put this potato back. And my grand total for these items was $6.28. Normally when I do these challenges, I do them over a period of 3 days, and then I'm actually eating what I'm making. However, due to my work schedule, I have to purchase everything and make everything in one day. And here's one last look at our ingredients before I get started. The first thing I'll do is make the dough for the samosas, and for this I'm using 1/2 cup flour, a dash of salt, which is also known as 1/8 of a teaspoon, 1.5 tablespoons of oil, and 1.5 tablespoons of water. I haven't added any of the water yet. I'm just mixing in the oil into the flour and salt. And I keep doing this until I've added all of the oil. And I want it to form a clump in my hand like this. Then I'll add in the water. And I'm being careful not to overwork this because I do want the dough to be soft instead of tough. And then I'm going to cover this and let it rest for 30 minutes. While that's sitting, I'm going to open these mixed vegetables. I just want to take a look at these and see how I think that these might be inside the samosas and how many potatoes were actually in here. So I think that this is going to be fine. I think what I'll do is I'll use half of this in soups, and then I'll use the rest of it inside my samosas, but I'm also going to cook some lentils, and the lentils will be the majority of the protein in there with the mixed vegetables inside the samosas. And because I'm making so many meals at once, I'm just going to cook this entire bag of lentils, and I will wash this and get these ready to go. And I did add some salt to this as well. And these cook so quickly that I did want to take out a few of these early on because I do plan to make a cold lentil salad. So I'm going to set those aside for later. And now I'm going to make a seasoning for the lentil mixture that'll go inside the samosas. And I'm starting with a 4th teaspoon fennel seed. Really, I'm just using what I have in my pantry, but you can use whatever you have. Just plain garlic salt and salt and pepper will work here. But I'm showing you the ingredients. I'll also post them in the description area of my video. Basically, I'm just trying to mimic some of the ingredients that I found that were popular for samosas, and I really don't have all of the ingredients, but that's fine. I'm just using the spices that I do have. And I noticed that many recipes called for amchur, which is a mango powder that's made out of unripe mangoes, and it has a citrus flavor. And I was looking for something to mimic it, and I have this sumac in my pantry that I haven't used since I bought it, basically. And it does also have a light citrusy flavor. You could also add in some lemon, maybe a little bit of vinegar might work as well. But just use your imagination with the spices that you have. Then I'm going to add in the lentils to this. This has to be some of the best spiced lentils I've ever made. I love this flavor combination. Not sure how I did it, but it is delicious. And the flavor is perfect. I actually don't really want to dilute this at all by mixing in the vegetables, but I'm sure it'll be great. So I'll mix these up and then set these aside as the filling for my samosas. And I do feel like I'm in one of those chopped episodes where I've got 10 things going on at once because it is Monday and I'm cooking everything all in one day. My goal with this dough is to get 6 samosas. So I'm going to separate this into 6. And when I did the first one, I actually decided to try to roll it in a technique that is used for some of the samosas that I saw. And so for those, I combined 2 of the rolls and then I rolled that out. And I don't think I had enough dough to make this particular technique work. And so, yeah, I just ended up with an ugly mess. But that's fine. I'll just go ahead and wrap this up and then I'll use a technique that I know better. For this one, I'm going to use what I call the roll and fold method. You just take the ends and you fold them over. And this is typically how you would make an empanada. If you make these and for some reason your dough is too thin and it tears a little in one spot, then you can just simply bake that one instead of frying it. Because if you do fry one that has a hole in it, then obviously the little pieces on the inside are going to come out. And I tested my oil to make sure it was hot enough. And gosh, there was lots of talk online about frying your samosas in a lower heat to make them taste better or crispier. I don't have a thermometer gauge for the oil, so I'm just going to fry these. And I'll pick out the smallest strawberries to use in this, and I'll save the big, large ones for something different. And I just cut these up into small pieces, and then I'll cook these with a little bit of water and sugar. Basically, I'm just going to make a glaze. You can use this for many different things. You can make a topping like a jam for toast. You can make a topping for ice cream or other desserts. Lots of different things you can do with that. And now, while that's cooking, I'm just going to make a dressing for my salad, which is going to be some white balsamic vinegar and oil and sugar. And basically, you can use any vinegar. You guys have seen me make these dressings quite often. And I did add a little salt. Sometimes I'll add a few herbs in there, but this time I'm just going basic. I love the taste of this just like it is. And I'm just adding a touch of the balsamic vinegar to the strawberry mixture. And once again, if you have another kind of vinegar, that's going to be fine. I do think there's something delicious about the combination of strawberries and balsamic vinegar. And then just to make this more beautiful, I added some more strawberries in just before plating. And now it's time to show you all the meals I made. For the first breakfast, I made an open-faced sandwich with lentil hummus on naan bread, and this was surprisingly delicious. I had never tried lentil hummus before, and I'd also never tried strawberries on a sandwich, but it was so good. It's definitely not going to be the last time I do that. I also had this balsamic sauce on the side to add to the top, which was also very good. I liked it both ways, with and without. And for my second breakfast, I basically had the same thing, except this time I cut the naan bread up into smaller pieces, and because I usually eat my breakfast in my car, I packed it in this to-go container. I usually do about an hour of editing in the morning, and then I just drive to work, and then I sit there and eat my breakfast and have a few moments of peace before I start the second part of my day. And this was really good. And if you're wondering how I made the bread, I basically just made it the same way I made the samosas, except for this, I did add some baking powder to the mix. I could have added garlic powder or other spices directly to the dough to flavor the bread, but I did choose to do it this way. For the hummus, I made the lentils exactly like I made them earlier for the samosas because I love that flavor so much. And then I just added some sumac, and I of course blended these together. But if you have some lemon, then add that in. It'll really brighten it up. This was really good. I just basically layered it out on there and added my vegetables. The third breakfast I made was a cold lentil salad, and I had never tried a lentil salad before, but this was surprisingly delicious. And once again, I used that vinaigrette. I used that interchangeably with some of my meals. It was delicious and it made things a lot easier. I also discovered that strawberries are really good in these types of salads. They kind of balance the richness of the lentils. And I made a big pot of soup, and here you're seeing it garnished with a little bit of the chili garlic sauce. For this, I browned half of the bag of pasta before adding it to the soup. I added in the rest of my vegetables, along with some chopped spinach and some basic spices, and this made a nice soup. For the second lunch, I had the samosas, and I fried up some spinach with garlic on the side. For the first dinner, I made a spinach and strawberry salad with a balsamic vinaigrette, and this was where I tried the samosas for the first time. I was actually shocked at the texture of these. They were so light and airy and crispy, and they were delicious on their own, but eaten along with that strawberry sauce made these a 10 for me. And I did try a couple of these in the air fryer, and they just didn't get the same texture that they got when I fried them. However, that is an option if you want to do that, or if you want to bake them. Also, I should have added just a touch more salt to these, so if you are following my recipe, keep that in mind. I definitely think making these up and putting these in the freezer is the way to go. This texture is also a lot flakier than I expected. The last dinner I had was actually a repeat of the first. However, I did plate this differently. I had a little bit of fun with the strawberries and plating this. I sprinkled this with some black sesame seeds from my spice cabinet just to give it some visual interest. And for this challenge, I did manage to fit in one snack. I enjoyed that lentil hummus so much that I decided to make some pita chips to go with it, and I made those when I was making the naan bread. I just ended up cutting up some strips, then I brushed these with some oil and threw them in my air fryer, and then I kept checking them until they reached the level of brown that I wanted, which was about right here. And these were just as good as store-bought, with the exception that they didn't stay crispy as long, so the next day they felt kind of stale. But maybe that was how I stored them. I think I just threw them in a bag though. Here are the ingredients that I had left over. I had a ton of lentils still, and I had quite a few strawberries, which I did want to make an eggless cake for dessert with strawberries on top, but I just ran out of time. It would have looked like this, but without the whipped cream. I also could have made a strawberry empanada, which would have been delicious. I would have made it just like I made the samosas, except I would have had the strawberry filling. I had quite a bit of cucumber left over. I had this part here, but I also had all of these that I had cut up and placed into this bread and butter chips liquid that I had left over. And then I had this much spinach left over, and I also had a half of a bag of the pasta left over that isn't shown. And I guess that concludes this week's video. As always, I would love to hear any ideas for how you would have used these ingredients. I do hope you liked this video because I did have a lot of fun doing it. Thanks so much for watching, friends. I'll see you next week.
Morning has broken, my windows are open. Wanna feel the wind blow through my hair. Which way do I follow? What happens tomorrow? I turn to you and hope you can guide the way. Sometimes I give up, just wanna be on my